In this video, I'm going to talk about No Rest for the Wicked in my early access weekend. With over 40 hours clocked, we're going to go over the gear, the build that I had, my overall impressions of the game, and checking to see if maybe it's for you or maybe it's not. So this video game is not what I thought it was. No Rest for the Wicked, I thought I'd be playing an ARPG. I really didn't have too many expectations going into it, but I gotta tell you, this game is absolutely crazy. The itemization changes everything, whether you're going to be like a dagger-wielding character or a great sword-cleaving person, hammer smash, like loot matters and the game feels great. So I want to go over some of the pros and cons of the game that I discovered and also give you guys some tips and tricks you can use when you're playing the game for the first time. And if you're on the fence about maybe buying it, hopefully this video kind of guides you in a way that either aids you in that decision or kind of prevents you from maybe making a mistake, because this game may not be what you think it is. And in this video, I'm going to tell you why. No Rest for the Wicked is very much a Souls game layered with ARPG. And when I got into the game, I didn't really realize that. I didn't even know what to expect. I had no expectations going in, other than people in my community asking me, hey, Barricade, you going to play the game? And I'm so happy that I did, because this game is so much more than I thought it was. The difficulty of the game is something that I actually like. If you don't like the idea of reactive combat, where you have to parry on command with a very small window of opportunity, or subsequently take almost lethal or tremendous massive damage, then this game may not be for you, because you will see this repetition in the game where you're constantly dodging, parrying, or just straight up eating damage. And the ways that you can beat that are pretty obvious in the game through things like armor stats, resistance to elemental damage, or your just player skill. You can go through this game, by the way, with like no gear, and that's kind of like the way I wanted to go. Hard mode from the beginning. I did use a claymore, and I eventually got my gameplay increased to use a greatsword, because this has sort of got that fantastical layer on top of it, where you are investing in your character. Is your character more intelligence-based, strength-based, dexterity-based? Like, what is it? And for me, I ended up using a claymore all the way until I got into a greatsword appreciation. I finally got strong enough to wield a greatsword. So that greatsword changed the game, changed the flow of combat, and I'm not looking back. I love that greatsword, and I'm curious to find out what you guys used in your game. Daggers are also kind of nice. I never made a range build or a magic build, but it is possible in the game, and there's items there to support those builds. One of the pros of the game is that the loot in the game feels very, very rewarding, because it dictates the way you engage with monster encounters in the game. As an example, I use a greatsword, so I dash forward, but if you're a hammer character, you may load it up, leap in, and attack. Like, that whole start is very, very different depending on how many monsters you're engaging with. Things like that matter in this game, and I really love that level of scrutiny based off the decision you get as a player. Additionally, upgrading your city feels important. You can appreciate the rewards both in the quality of life and combat, as the items you get from vendors actually matter, and they do bridge the gap in difficulty. So if you find that you're not of the appropriate level to use the next tier of gear because your stats aren't quite there, buying something from your alchemist that gives you like fire benefit will add like roughly, who knows, 5 to 10 damage in your weapon, which is actually quite a bit. You might even only see that update if you update your blacksmith, or if you upgrade your blacksmith, your smithy, right? That's awesome. The fact that I get that appreciation from the world because I'm chopping down trees, mining nodes, doing some fishing to a lesser degree to help recipes, it all matters in your character's adventure, and I really like that. One of the biggest cons of the game right now is that it's solo only, but the development team over at Moon Studios is going to be doing multiplayer as well as co-op play, which is great, and I've heard some rumblings about PvP as well. Unfortunately, I didn't do too much research in the game. I just kind of played it to see what it was. And was I ever impressed with the visual art style? Huge forearms, crazy looking characters. When you take that sort of approach, I kind of love it, because you don't take yourself too seriously, and I get to just have fun, because that's what we're supposed to be doing in games, right? Having fun. Let's do more of that. Overall, the gameplay can be punishing if you're not familiar with the content. This is, again, a Souls game. I got to warn you on this. It is very rough. Sometimes you get caught against the wall and you just lose. If you're not good at reaction-style combat, it may not be for you. One of the loudest rumblings I hear online is that you can't currently respec your points. You have your character developed at the end game, but you can't wield all these different weapons because your character just doesn't have the points to do so. So at the current iteration of the game, you cannot respec your character. You cannot spend those stat points in other places to use other weapons. And that is a problem, but it's early access. This is sort of the restriction you're going to get when you're in that situation. Furthermore, it's sort of punishing that you can't respec your character, because you find out later on in the game that certain items require certain stats that you wouldn't have known. There's no way you could have had that knowledge unless you finally pick up that weapon later on in the game. And so a respec option would be very viable, very awesome. But the nice part is you can always just make another character and enjoy the content. Realm gameplay is pretty interesting. What a realm is it allows you to restart the entire game. Think of like NG+, if that's something you want to do, to collect an earlier currency. As you level up in the game, the world sort of levels up with you. So trees become of different value, mines become of different value, copper becomes iron, iron can become silver, that kind of thing. So you're going to maybe find a situation where You want to get more copper, more clay, and it's hard to do in the world. So what do? You can take the pre-existing character that you have and bring that into a brand new realm and restart the game with all of your gear, all of your XP, all of your items, and just fly through the content because you're overpowered relative to the world that you're in. And you can create and delete worlds as you want to, and that's awesome. You simply make one, bring your character in, and away you go. Another speed bump in the enjoyment process was the lack of fast travel in the game. Now, you can't just open up your map and travel wherever you want. You had to actually run there with your character. And in some ways, this felt kind of tedious over time, but it really wasn't a big deal. Again, this is early access. It is what it is. That's not to say that doesn't come out in the future, but the ability to fast travel, while it was in the game, I did use that by, opening up your map, left analog, and I was going wherever I wanted. That made the game so much more fun because I was always in the content. I was always on that roller coaster of domination with the content. It was great. But that's no longer in the game, so how did it feel after that? Like I had to go adventure with my character in the world, which is kind of the design, which isn't too bad because the world looks good too, but would have been nice to keep that in there, or maybe later on in the game you get access to that, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that rolls out in the future. You can't change the position of the stamina bar in No Rest for the Wicked. The green circle that represents your stamina bar can sometimes get lost to the background from time to time. And so other games like Elden Ring, I'll use as an example, the stamina bar is positioned near your HP bar and your focus bar. So you kind of quickly know how to view the game at a glance to go, what are my character's resources? How am I doing in combat? It'd be great to see that stamina bar have an option. I could look at it circularly like the way it is now, or deploy it as a bar at the top. I think that would be great. That would make it just a little bit better to an already amazing game. And so my adventures was sword wielding. I did try sword and board briefly, but the damage wasn't as good as the two-handed sword. So I ended up just going back to a two-handed sword. Now, as of the time of this video, I have tried the mace. I've tried like a two-handed mace, a one-handed sword, daggers, two-handed sword, claymore, greatsword. I tried a staff, and that's what I had. So like staff hitting, nothing crazy fireball casting. And so far, for me, this is a high score, but when I started, it was 9.4 out of 10. I'm going to give it like an 8.8 just because it turns out that in the game at the moment, you can reset boss fights simply by logging out after you kill them, and that regenerates the entire encounter. So if you're having a hard time on something like an Echo Knight in the Serum's Crucible, once you go past all the different waves of the Serum's trials, right, you get to the final Echo Knight, you can just go ahead and log out there, log back in, and keep doing that fight over and over and over, which is kind of how I learned the fight mechanics through this exploitive process. But without that, it is very trying to just get trampled by a horse in 2 seconds and not know what the hell happened to you, right? Like, what was that about? Well, use that method if you need to practice it while it's in the game, right? Exploit early, exploit often if you want to. Another dubious thing is once you kill the Echo Knight and you receive that treasure trove, you can just log out there, log back in, and reset that loot as much as you want to basically appreciate every single unique. Now, because that exists, the luster for the challenge kind of goes away. It erodes almost instantaneously for me, so I'm actually just not doing that. I'm just going to walk through the floors, fight the boss or lose, and do it again. It's the challenge and the trial that I like, and personally, I don't want to exploit because then there's nothing left to do. Crafting your house is extremely important, by the way. You're going to want to get a bunch of cupboards, a bunch of chests to store your items because this is the early access portion, right? So get your XP potions in there, right? Get all of your crafting materials that you don't want to hang on to. Toss them all in a stash and just wait. Patience is number one. And so make sure you have a house. Make sure that you're getting objects in that house so you can store your stuff. Again, potions, materials, armor scraps, weapon scraps. You're going to use all that later on. Who knows where the game goes? All right, dude, so in this build, we're taking advantage of being level 30. We can no longer get any extra levels. Experience doesn't matter. And so our helmet, like the Verdant Warrior helmet, experience gain decreased by 6% is a negative. Like, it's a bit of a kiss curse. You have the benefits and the negatives. This didn't matter because we can't really worry about XP because we're capped. So because of that, we're going to use this helmet. It's got all res, chance to gain health on damage taken. It has focus gain increase, just a solid helmet. The chest was the Eversoul Knight Armor. So again, more resistances, increased health by 10% at the Chipped Ruby. We're using Chipped Ruby on both, by the way, for the health benefit. Also increases our equip load by 18%. It's indestructible, so you don't have to repair it a lot. And then our poise defense is increased as well. The pants, Eversoul Knight Greaves. Again, 165 on the armor. Not even gem. We're just walking through the content with these things. The equip load's increased. Our healing effects are also increased. And our poise defense is increased. But the health, we're losing 19% health at the moment. So that could be better. Still looking for better pants. But again, the build walks through the game. As for the gloves, Eversoul Knight Gauntlets, increased armor, increased health, increased stagger resistance, solid. Now the rings, we're using a Thistle Ring and 2 Agility Rings. So the Thistle Ring kind of plays with our helmet. So it deals extra damage to enemies, but also hurts me every time I do damage. Okay? So every time I do damage, I gain some health back, right? Because I'm taking damage every time I hit. So this kind of like there's a bit of a leech setup here. I hit things, I heal. And that's what makes that leech effect happen as you're watching the gameplay. It's pretty great. Now, last but not least, the Summer Sting two-handed greatsword. I was using a claymore for the majority of the content, but this freaking greatsword is so sick. It has wide sweeping arc damage. This wall breaker rune is nuts. It's a straight attack. It does tremendous damage, and I was loving it. And I've never seen a sword that had higher than 51 damage. After I've upgraded this to level 3, it's like the highest it can go, and damage surge is also a solid rune because it's increasing when you use damage surge the base damage of your attacks by roughly 50%. So 50% increased damage, wall breaker straight shots, and we're one-tapping these really tremendous opponents that were previously difficult. Now this build walks through the game. I'm so happy that I gave this game a shot, and I wasn't going to, but man, No Rest for the Wicked, I got snagged, I got roped right in. That game is fun. That is a fun game. And for roughly $32, you could be enjoying an awesome game. 40 hours for $32. That's in my opinion, amazing. So hats off to the Moon Studios crew. Great job. You caught me off guard, and I wasn't able to parry it, and I got addicted. So the game's sweet. Can't wait to see what else this game has in store. But let me know what you guys think. Are you checking the game out? Does it look good to you? Do you think this is going to be the kind of game? Let me know. If you like games like God of War, and you like games like Zelda, Diablo, Elden Ring, this game may be for you. It certainly is for me. It's checking off all those boxes. And that's my thoughts so far, guys. No Rest for the Wicked, W game. If I had to rate it out of 10 today, it would be 9.3. It's up there. Like, there's no 10. We don't give out 10s, right? But 9.3, very enjoyable for the first 40 hours and really like it. The art style is amazing. And again, the fact that the game doesn't take itself too seriously and isn't afraid to have fun, I think just makes it all that much better. Curious to see what your thoughts are. Thanks for checking out the video. I'll catch you guys in the next one.